Hello, everyone. We are back with weeks 3 and 4 of the Devoid Fantasy League. Give it up. We have got myself, Commissioner of the Global Wrestling League. We have got Micah up here, Commissioner of All-Star Combat Wrestling. And we have James up here, Commissioner of SVM Wrestling, which stands for, of course, Screw Vince McMahon. Gentlemen, how are we today?
You know, it's a fine, somber December day out here in the good old field. We got the sun setting. It looks like a real wonderful night for some Devoid Fantasy League wrestling entertainment here.
I absolutely agree. Micah, how about you? How are you doing?
I'm happy to have sunlight today. So, parts unknown is dark most of the year. So it's just great to have sunlight sometimes.
I absolutely agree. Are we excited to share what we've concocted for today's episode of the Devoid Fantasy League?
I'm just happy to be here.
Prepare to be amazed.
Well, let's get to it because I'm the most important.
No.
Thank you. I'm glad it's acknowledged.
Look at you with your big window.
I'm glad it's acknowledged on air that I'm the most important. Thank you, Micah.
I'm editing that out.
It is week 3 here at the Global Wrestling League, and we start out our next episode with authority figure standing in the ring with yet another velvet bag that looks like a championship could be inside. He says that he'd like to continue his conversation about championships from a few weeks ago. He says that while there should always be a top prize to wrestling, there should also be something for people to want to prove themselves on their journey to that prize. And he announces and reveals the Global Wrestling League National Championship. He announces that the inaugural Global Wrestling League National Champion will be decided in a fatal 4-way match at Fresh Start in a few weeks' time. The first 2 competitors will be the 2 who do not advance in the World Championship tournament from the semifinals. Another spot will be determined in a fatal 4-way match involving all of the losers from the Global Wrestling League Tag Team World Championships tournament. And the final spot will be determined in an 8-person over-the-top rope battle royal involving the losers from the first round of the Global Wrestling League World Championship tournament. Let's start the action right now with the fatal 4-way from all the losers from the Global Wrestling League Tag Team World Championship tournament. And out becomes the 4 competitors for our first match. Brutus Creed versus Julius Creed versus Enzo Amore versus Big Cass. Enzo and Cass walk out together first. They do their whole shtick, their Enzo and Cass thing. And they cut a promo about how Brutus Creed is an okay wrestler, but Julius Creed is the dirt worst and has absolutely zero place trying to get any championships. They finish their shtick. Cass calls them soft and everything. The Creeds are not happy on their way to the ring, especially Julius. Once the bell rings, they have a glorified tornado tag team squash match with the Creeds throwing around Enzo Amore like an absolute rag doll and also out-wrestling Cass so hard he cannot keep up. At the end of the match, Brutus gets Big Cass down and yells, "It's your shot, bro," before Julius hits his finisher to Enzo Amore in the ring and pins him for 3. Julius Creed is your winner, and he will be moving on to the GWL National Championship match at Fresh Start. We go now to a sit-down interview. We have Vaguely Old Man sitting with Preston Vance, who is, of course, Dark Order number 10 unmasked. Vance says that he's trained up for his moment to shine, and it felt really good to have a success in the first round of the tournament. He says that him and Evil Uno had an understanding that it was everyone for themselves in that match, and he said he wishes Uno wasn't the easiest route to winning that match for him, and that Uno is his mentor and coach. Uno will be at ringside for him, including next week in his match against Braun Breaker. Vaguely Old Man asks Ten why he doesn't speak when he has the mask on. Ten says that the mask helps him focus and helps him stay true to what's made him so successful in the ring. He doesn't speak in the mask because he's a different person in the mask entirely, and that person doesn't speak. He starts talking about Braun Breaker, praises his family's lineage, and says that Breaker was naturally made for this. But Vance said he worked hard for this and intends to continue to work hard for the GWL World Championship. Vance says he's always wanted to be a champion and will stop at nothing to be the champion. If somehow he doesn't beat Braun Breaker next week, he'll simply have to beat the 3 other losers and hold the national title hostage until he gets his world championship. He then laughs off that part he said before saying he's looking forward to a really competitive matchup with Braun Breaker next week. We move now to a match. Braun Breaker will be taking on Harry Smith. Just imagine Rick Steiner versus the British Bulldog, and that's basically what this match is. They use like 95% their father's movesets in this match. It's a short match, totally just meant for Braun Breaker to get a nice win. Braun Breaker hits his finisher for an easy 1-2-3. We go now to Vaguely Old Man, who is on the ground beaten up backstage. The camera that is on him gets knocked over and picked up eventually by Sami Callihan. He then goes around trashing backstage with the camera, saying that all this polish that GWL has going on is to hide the fact that none of them could last even a second in Sami Callihan's ring. He comes on to Chad Gable backstage, points the camera at him, and says it's time to leave an impression. He places down the camera and begins to absolutely beat the shit out of Chad Gable. Josh Alexander runs in for the save and hits a suplex with Sami into some technical boxes in the back. Alexander helps up Gable, shakes his hand, and says, if you want to learn a thing or two, watch tonight's main event. We go now to the main event of this episode of the Global Wrestling League. Josh Alexander versus Edge versus Rhea Ripley in another round 1 matchup for the GWL World Championship. Christian Cage is, of course, on commentary for this match as him and Edge are tag team partners. This first part of this match is a huge dominant showing by Edge. Him and Alexander exchange holds for a while before Ripley comes in and starts trading strikes. Edge has the upper hand, picking apart Alexander and Ripley individually, and he starts to get more and more vicious on his attacks on both, switching to mostly strikes as he gets later in the match. At the about 14-minute point, Brian Pillman Jr. and Harry Smith ambush Christian Cage from the crowd, attacking him at the desk. Edge joins in the brawl, and they all brawl out of the ring. We're left with a one-on-one situation between Josh Alexander and Rhea Ripley. The two have a technical masterclass for the last 3 or so minutes of the match, with Josh Alexander reversing a pin attempt into an ankle lock for the win. The winner of the main event and standing tall to close off the show is Josh Alexander. So what do y'all think?
Wow. A lot of matches there.
A lot of matches that I like the twist at the end. Thought that was cool.
Sort of building up, not a lot going on story-wise, but building up to a lot going on.
I like how there's a little dissension between the Creed brothers, just like a little hint of dissension. Like Big Cass and Enzo are like still clearly a tag team.
Yeah.
Seeing the seeds.
So Preston Vance is like Jekyll and Hyde, like with the mask he's one person and unmasked he's just like a regular guy.
Yeah, kinda, you know. He's like
so he's kind of he's Festus but with a mask.
That kind of like do you remember like when Eric Rowan tried to do the gimmick where like different masks were different things? That's kind of what I'm going for. All right.
I guess
well,
it's my turn, right?
Yeah, we go now to All-Star Combat Wrestling.
I'm gonna take this off. All right. Can I just start whenever?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Hello everybody. I guess this is gonna be week 3, so boom. We're gonna start off this wrestling program. Get this. with a wrestling match. Starting off, we have Hangman Adam Page, accompanied by Don Callis, versus Griff Garrison, who, as we remember, has had those video packages building him up. So the bell rings, and Griff Garrison takes a huge lunging swing at Hangman Page, who lifts up Griff Garrison into the Deadeye and hits the Deadeye. Hangman then gets outside the ropes, and then he immediately hits a buckshot lariat on Garrison for the squash pin. This match lasts maybe 47 seconds immediately. We then get another match. This is Cody with Brandy Rhodes versus Jay Uso. Cody starts the match by overpowering Uso, who can't really get any offense in. He's not really clicking. Nothing's really working. Cody then hits a disaster kick and covers Uso, but Jay kicks out at 2 and is all fired up, which is my favorite movie. Cody then also yells and gets a hit of the American Spirit, which caused him to hit 2 crossroads for the pinfall win, because America, yay. Am I right, Cody? Post-match, Carmella ambushes Brandy as Cody and Brandy walk up the ramp, and Carmella runs her fingers across Cody's abs before dragging Brandy by the hair to the ring. Very scandalous. Ooh, where's this going? Storytelling. We then go to Brandy Rose versus Carmella. And Carmella's like dancing around Brandy as the match starts, being cocky and heelish, kicking her in the face as she's down, really, really being mean. Before Brandy reverses a punch and kicks Carmella right in the gut. Carmella then slaps Brandy across the face, which, as we know, is the most powerful move in all of women's wrestling, and delivers a pump kick to Brandy's face before connecting a spinning roundhouse kick for the win. We then go backstage to hear Don Callis cut a promo with Hangman Page, and this is what he says. He says, "Griff Garrison, you put on an amazing performance last week and this week as well. But Adam here is a skilled professional wrestler, possibly the first ever world champion in All-Star Combat Wrestling. But we see potential in you, Mr. Garrison. A young athlete like you just needs some direction, a little bit of help. You know where to find me, and if you're old enough, maybe we can share a drink and talk. Think about it." Immediately after, Excalibur reveals that a 4-man tournament will happen at the inaugural pay-per-view, where the winner becomes the first All-Star Wrestling Combat Heavyweight Champion. Also announced for the pay-per-view is a Battle Royal, which will determine a future number 1 contender for the Heavyweight Championship, and the only way to enter the Battle Royal is to have a match victory. Ooh. So, we then move to Xavier Woods versus Hook, a match that I think everyone wants to see. Before the bell, Hook hits a cheap shot on Xavier Woods, laying him out with several Germans and belly-to-belly suplexes. After the bell rings, Hook hits Woods with a Gotch piledriver and locks in the Taz mission as Woods taps out. Post-match, Jay Uso ambushes Hook until Gable Steveson saves Hook, and the 2 men lock eyes and walk back up the ramp together. We then hit the main event segment. This cult of personality rings through the arena, and CM Punk debuts in All-Star Combat Wrestling, making his return to professional wrestling in 7 years. Punk walks out to the stage. He's doing the whole knees things. He's like possibly crying. I don't really know him. He's basking in the audience's praise. Sure, he does like a stage dive. I'm not sure if he would do that either, but CM Punk. He's in the middle of the ring. CM Punk chants, but this time they're not ironic. They're genuine. He has a microphone and he says the following: "Did you miss me? Because I sure as hell miss you guys. 7 years is a long time, but trust me when I say I'm back." And I know you couldn't see me, but there was no chance in hell that I wouldn't be back here in Chicago. Because we're in Chicago, I guess. And I know that some of you are hurt, mad, both, or maybe somehow you have no idea who the hell I am. But I need to tell you why I'm here, why I'm back. I left professional wrestling because I was never going to get healthy physically, mentally, spiritually, or emotionally, staying in the same place that got me sick in the first place. And that made me lose my passion, my drive, my will, my love of professional wrestling. But this right here, that, walking down this ring, talking to all you people, that is why I came back. For all of you in the crowd, for all the people watching at home, and for you, all I want to say is, boom, immediately Punk is ambushed by Kazuchika Okada and Will Osprey. Okada puts Punk in a rear naked choke, and Osprey hits a GTS on CM Punk. The show goes off the air with a passed out CM Punk in Okada's money clip as Osprey yells down the lens of the camera, "Who's the best now? Tell us, Phil. Who's the best in the world now?" Pat McAfee doesn't say a single word.
The ratings.
Why is Micah here? Why is Micah here? If CM Punk is gonna return and then just get ambushed, why? Why would you do that to CM Punk?
Micah went, but what if we actually booked MJF coming out the Cult of Personality at the top of Rampage on August 20th?
No, it's different. It's different. It was good. It was good. You gotta have a little storyline. It ended the show. It keeps you on a cliffhanger. It makes you think, oh my god, these guys are crazy. You know what I'm saying? These mercenaries, these fucking badasses.
It certainly closed the show with a fan favorite getting beaten down after returning after 7 years.
Yeah. It was interesting. Hey, it's a risk. You gotta take a risk in professional wrestling. We obviously CM Punk returning is a big deal. Why not try to make something out of it? Because it was going to be a good segment no matter what.
That's very fair.
If something like that happened in real life, I'd be a little disappointed.
And why'd you book it?
I did book it.
I need the lighting perfect if I'm gonna, talk about this world famous Screw Vince McMahon promotion.
Did you like anything else of mine?
No, I actually hate everything about you.
All right. Well, do we want to get into Screw Vince McMahon wrestling?
No, actually. I would rather not.
Oh, that sucks.
Oh, it's almost
Why put on the fourth best promotion in this 3-person clique?
Yeah, WWE is still somehow
better than James.
Somehow I'm the imitator. I'm just trying to do the opposite of what Vince McMahon would do. Because that's what we go for here in Screw Vince McMahon Wrestling. Screw the fans. It's all about just what Vince McMahon doesn't want at its core. So we're starting off big here this episode. And when I say big, I mean we're starting off with a singles match. We're going to have some people at ringside. So we're going to have Finn Balor with Keith Lee at ringside versus Jon Moxley with Matt Cardona. So Finn Balor and Jon Moxley. It's about a solid 15-minute match to start off the show. Balor and Moxley, they trade punches. Moxley's a brawler. He gets most of his hits in there. Finn Balor goes for a lot of aerial attacks, jumps off the rope, does a couple flips. The match ends with Finn Balor hitting his finisher and just completely demolishing Moxley in the process. 1, 2, 3. Finn Balor wins, celebrates. A good feel-good story for Finn Balor to start it off. He goes to the back, and then we cut to a promo. The promo is of a match that we've actually had the past 2 weeks. Kofi and MJF have faced each other the past 2 weeks, and now they have a promo. And it's just them in the locker room insulting each other. They're just sitting on a bench, going back and forth. Kofi says that MJF is a less famous Miz, and then MJF asks Kofi where his Jamaican accent has been this whole time he's been wrestling. And then we have Road Agent that I'm just completely inserting unprecedented. Arn Anderson comes over and reminds MJF that joke is from 10 years ago. He's like, MJF, I hate to break it to you, but Triple H already made that joke. It was. And and that's how it ends. Arn Anderson just walks away, and then they look at each other, and it cuts. And JR and King are just kind of like, well, this does kind of look like something we've seen before here. And then and then we cut to an advertising promo. So I don't know what's being advertised, but we're just going to advertise something after that. After that, we have, we have Heyman coming out to the ring with Penta El Cerro. It's going to be Penta El Cerro versus Sammy Guevara. So Penta El Cerro and Sammy Guevara, they go at it. This is about a 5-minute squash match, very much in the same vein as what Vince McMahon would do. They just kind of go at it back and forth for a little while. And Jared, who's winning it? Penta El Cerro or Sammy Guevara?
I'm going to have to go with Sammy.
Sammy? All right, Sammy Guevara wins that match.
Yeah!
All right, so Sammy Guevara gets put over Penta El Cerro and Heyman. And we will see where that takes us next week. So that match happens. Then we have a very interesting singles match. We have Orange Cassidy coming out once again, and he's going to face Drew McIntyre. And these are two guys that in previous weeks talked about how they were going to try to run the singles division. So this match could very well be for the singles division. And so, Drew and Orange, they go back and forth for quite some time. I'd say this is about another 10, 15-minute match. Drew, very much a powerhouse guy. He just kind of, throws Orange in the corner. I love saying just Orange instead of Orange Cassidy. He throws Orange in the corner, beats him up a little bit, does a couple Irish whips, couple clotheslines. Then Orange Cassidy starts coming back, builds some momentum, gets a couple of, jumps off the top rope, an arm lock here or there. And Orange Cassidy ends up going over, hitting a running knee just out of, sunset flip. He hits a sunset flip, 1, 2, 3. Orange Cassidy wins it. This next match, we didn't even announce it. This is going to be a pretty interesting one. So it is going to be just completely unprecedented. I don't know if we're going to have an authority figure come out and mention it, or if we're just going to go right into it. I think I'm just going to give it to JR and King. Folks, this is a fatal 4-way for a title shot next week on SVM. So we're going to have a fatal 4-way for a title shot next week to face the champ AJ Styles. And so in order, the competitors come out. We're starting off. Matt Hardy is going to get a shot in this match. So Broken Matt Hardy comes out. Randy Orton comes out. Then Darby Allin comes out third. And last but not least, yes, it is Bork Laser with The Rock. They come out there. They do their entrance. It's going to be a fatal 4-way. This match goes on for 20 to 25 minutes. This is the main event. JR and King are right back in the 90s. There's just a bunch of crazy spots. We have Darby Allin hitting his coffin drop on all 3 men at the same time as they're just kind of standing there to catch him, but it's in the ring, so it doesn't really make sense, but it doesn't have to. Darby Allin hits that. Brock Lesnar actually goes shooting star press once again. I think he might have actually hit it this time. Brock Lesnar hits the shooting star press on Randy Orton, cannot get the cover. The match continues. Matt Hardy lands a real interesting move. He just kind of does that thing that Ricochet did where he like runs and gives himself an Irish whip and then jumps over the ropes and falls on all three guys outside the ring with a flip because he's broken. And then all the competitors go back in the ring. And it's getting out of the end. You can tell the competitors are kind of gassed. We're starting to throw out some finishers. And then, so yes, all four competitors are in the ring. Then broken Matt Hardy and Darby Allin are kicked out of the ring by Lesnar and Orton. Lesnar hits an F5 on Randy Orton. As he hits his F5, AJ Styles comes running down the ramp, gets in the ring, hits his finisher on Brock Lesnar, kicks Brock out, gets Randy up, gives his finisher to Randy, pin, 1, 2, 3. No one gets a title shot next week.
I was live for Money in the Bank 2019, and that kind of felt like the same thing at the end.
Just a role reversal. Had to come back to Brock at some point.
Again, why is James actually here?
I will say I'm glad that Orange Cassidy is the new singles division.
Yes, he is the new singles division. And that last match also could have been for the singles division.
That's fair.
Is that the title? Is that like the championships in your division? Is like being a division? Is that like being the champion?
So,
or is that separate?
So we have like an official title and an unofficial title, right?
But I thought Randy Orton was the singles division. Like he wasn't beaten to be the singles division. Like
you're right. So Randy Orton had a lot to prove going into this match. He was the singles division and. Well, just couldn't pull it out.
Yeah, do you remember how the commissioner of WCW was kind of a championship at one point? I feel like it's like that.
It's honestly very similar.
Oh my god.
Oh, and if you thought this week was good, I improved upon it for the next week as well.
I didn't.
I thought it was great. Well, should we get into week 4 of the Global Wrestling League? Alrighty, we open week 4 of the Global Wrestling League with Edge and Christian Cage making their way to ringside. They're very happy-go-lucky. It's good old Edge and Christian, of course. They love the fans. They're giving them high fives. They've got their cameras and whatnot. They said they have a chance to make history and not only become 8-time tag team champions, but become the first ever Global Wrestling League Tag Team World Champions. They say that the new generation attacking them last week was cheap, but they understand why they did it, and they would have done the exact same thing. Edge says that doesn't mean that a receipt isn't coming for the new generation. They took it to the next level. They provoked us, so it's time to provoke them back. We are officially challenging the new generation to make the Tag Team World Championship match at Fresh Start a ladder match. They then turn their attention to tonight's opening match. Just how they'll make history at Fresh Start, Edge will also make history next week. Edge will make history by being the first ever double champion in the Global Wrestling League after winning tonight's Battle Royal and subsequently the National Championship match. Christian says that they have to hype Edge up first, so they're going to watch a clip. They play on the big screen a clip from the first week of the Global Wrestling League. It shows the finish of their round 1 matchup, where Julius Creed hits Edge with his finisher and almost gets the 3 count before Christian pulls Julius out of the ring. We go back to the ring where Edge is looking more manic. He slaps Christian's chest and tells him to get to the commentary booth so he can win a fucking battle royal. We now go to the battle royal. The rest of the competitors come out. This match is, of course, Edge versus Rhea Ripley versus Layla Hirsch versus Kota Ibushi versus Shayna Baszler versus Jonathan Gresham versus Chad Gable versus Evil Uno. And the elimination order goes as such. Evil Uno is eliminated first, being tossed out of the ring after being hit with a spear from Edge after like a minute. Layla Hirsch is then eliminated via pump kick by Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley is the next person eliminated after Edge takes advantage of her bragging about her elimination of Layla Hirsch. Edge is the next person eliminated, this time by Chad Gable, as Gable jumps over Edge's spear and counters it into a deadlift German suplex over the top rope. The next person eliminated is Jonathan Gresham after being choked out by Shayna Baszler and thrown over the top rope. Chad Gable is the next person eliminated after Sami Callihan runs into the match and batters Chad Gable with a baseball bat, giving Gable to Shayna Baszler to throw over the top rope. And the final person eliminated, it is down to Kota Ibushi and Shayna Baszler. After a close back and forth, lots of strikes, lots of submissions, Kota Ibushi is thrown over the top rope by Shayna Baszler. Shayna Baszler winning the Battle Royal and earning herself a spot in the National Championship match at Fresh Start. We move now to the next match, a semi-finals match in the Global Wrestling League World Championship Tournament. This is Josh Alexander versus Bryan Danielson. Josh Alexander is the first person to enter the ring. When Danielson goes to enter the ring, he is walking with the widest smile in the world. He shakes Josh Alexander's hand before the match begins. When the bell rings, Alexander and Danielson appear to go for a test of strength before Danielson lays Alexander out with a vicious elbow. Alexander looks up at Danielson, who taps his head at Alexander on the ground. This shtick continues for a while, Alexander going for like wrestling moves and then Danielson just hitting him with stiff as fuck strikes. Alexander eventually snaps and starts laying into Danielson with vicious punches. When the punches stop, Danielson is bloody but smiling. He then throws Alexander into the corner and hits him with a running drop kick into the corner. It is important to note that at this point in the match, Bryan Danielson has used only strikes. He hasn't used a single technical wrestling move yet. He revs up to go for the running knee, which Alexander counters by grabbing his knee and reversing it into an ankle lock. Danielson turns himself on his stomach and starts kicking Alexander in the head. Danielson continues to lay kicks into Alexander's head, doing both the yes kicks and then following it up with the, quote, he's going to get his fucking head kicked in, unquote, kicks. The match ends when Danielson grabs a nearly unconscious Josh Alexander and gets him into the cattle mutilation, with Josh Alexander almost immediately tapping out to Bryan for the win. After the match, Bryan helps up Alexander. He grabs a mic and says, hey, I needed to win a tournament. Let's get more technical next time, before shaking Alexander's hand and walking away. We cut now to the doctor's room backstage where they are checking up on Chad Gable. The doctor tells Chad Gable that he's a little banged up, but he's going to be okay and he is cleared for any competition. After this, Gable walks over to Authority Figure's office where he demands a no disqualification match with Sami Callihan next week at Fresh Start. Authority Figure tells Gable that he doesn't think this is a good idea given his injuries tonight. Gable tells the Authority Figure that the doctors have cleared him and he would even wrestle another match tonight just to prove that he can fucking go. Authority Figure tells him, please don't bother. The no disqualification match is on for Fresh Start next week. We go down to the ring now for another matchup. This is Christian Cage with Edge at ringside versus Brian Pillman Jr. with Harry Smith at ringside. Christian and Pillman have a very good back and forth singles match before their ladder match next week. Pillman gets a lot of high flying moves in, while Christian hits Pillman with a lot of power moves, more technical style stuff. On the outside, Edge is just talking shit to Pillman in the ring, and Harry Smith is on the defense, just sort of watching Edge the whole time, waiting to strike. In the match finish, Christian goes for a spear, but Pillman leapfrogs over him, causing him to crash into the post. Brian Pillman Jr. hits the high fly flow while Harry Smith takes down Edge on the outside, with Pillman hitting the 1-2-3 for the win. Brian Pillman Jr. defeating Christian just before their world tag title match next week. And we move now to the main event of the show, the last semifinal match. The person who will face Bryan Danielson at Fresh Start for the world title. Braun Breaker will be taking on Dark Order's number 10 with Evil Uno at ringside. Uno is at ringside for this match, coaching 10 throughout the match. 10 and Breaker have your typical big meaty men slapping meat fest. 10 hits a few really key pump kicks at crucial parts in the match. The two take it to the outside several times in the match, with Breaker throwing 10 through the barricade near the timekeeper's area. Breaker throws 10 back in the ring and does that thing he does to like restart the count where he goes in the ring and then rolls out of the ring. And then Breaker goes for Evil Uno. He yells, 10 doesn't need help, fat ass, before hitting Evil Uno with his finisher through the announce table. He goes back into the ring where 10 catches Breaker with a full Nelson out of the blue. While in the hold, doctors rush to ringside to check on Evil Uno. When 10 sees this, he breaks his focus on the full Nelson for a second, turning his head to the doctors at ringside attending to his friend. This gives Braun Breaker the opportunity to power out of the submission and hit 10 with his finisher for the win. Braun Breaker moving on to Fresh Start to face Bryan Danielson for the World Championship. Evil Uno gains consciousness after the match, with 10 walking over to him at ringside. Uno sat up and he's holding his head looking at 10. Uno says, I'm sorry, man, but before Evil Uno can finish, 10 just sort of shakes his head and walks away, with a sad-looking, defeated-looking Evil Uno being the closing shot of the episode.
That was the character building episode, huh?
Sure was a character building episode. We're getting into it. What'd you guys think?
Yeah, man.
I loved that Braun Breaker match. That main event. I love when he like goes into the ring to, nullify the count out and then just gets out fat ass.
I bet like Bryan Danielson is basically AEW's Bryan Danielson now, and like this was definitely written before that happened.
This was written legitimately like at least a month and a half ago.
All right, so now the real week 4 begins as we enter All-Star Convent Wrestling. It's week 4 show, the pre-pay-per-view match, the PPPV, if you will. We're gonna start out with the Triple Threat Last Chance match. The winner of this, of course, will be added into the Battle Royal because you need to win in order to get into the Battle Royal. So it's going to be between Griff Garrison, Xavier Woods, and Jay Uso. Now, before the bell rings, Uso clocks Griff Garrison with a flying knee, and then he quickly turns to Woods. And the two men lock eyes as they have a lot of history from previous promotions. And they begin to tie up and like do that side punch thing that definitely works in real life. And Uso ends up hitting a huge uppercut that drops Woods. Woods then rolls out of the ring as Jay attempts a flying Uso on Garrison. But miraculously, Woods gets back into the ring and connects with a rolling elbow strike on an airborne Jay Uso. He then pins Jay 1, 2. Griff Garrison breaks it up just in time. Garrison then uses a Muay Thai clinch to knee Woods in the chest multiple times, and then slips in a guillotine choke and cinches in deep on Woods. But Uso eventually breaks up the submission with a kick to Griff's head. Jay then picks off Woods off the canvas, and then Woods hits a surprise cradle roll-up for the shock pinfall victory. Whoa, exactly. Xavier Woods won the match. Who would have thought? Post-match, Callis and Hangman come down, and Hangman attacks Uso and Woods as Garrison looks at Callis, not seeing Hangman at all. Callis offers Griff a handshake, and Griff reluctantly accepts. Am I saying that right? Next match It's Gable Stevenson versus the debuting Ethan Page. That's right. He's all ego and he's all ready to kick some ass, as he says in like a little like on-screen backstage interview promo thing. The match begins and Ethan Page begins kicking at Gable, barely grazing him, just like trying to find range. And because Gable's amateur wrestling background definitely plays a huge part in his wrestling. He throws out a couple times and they connect, and then Page throws a regular body kick, showing off his karate background. But Gable catches Page's leg and takes him down very, very abruptly. He then mounts Page's back and then throws and connects with devastating elbows and punches to the back of Page's head, something that Excalibur points out is not legal in amateur wrestling. And then Pat McAfee says, it's not legal in football either. It doesn't mean I don't do it. Gable then sees that all Page can do is cover up. And so he slips in a rear naked choke, and Page passes out with Gable Stevenson picking up the pinfall submission. We then move on to the next match. Sasha Banks versus Carmella. A match I don't think I've ever seen before. Has it happened before? Derek will tell me. The match starts. Carmella hits Sasha with her spinning roundhouse kick and tries to cover her quickly for the pin, but Sasha rolls to the floor. A veteran move, says Excalibur. Sasha is then whipped into the barricade by Carmella, who then throws Banks back into the ring and then rolls her into the ring. Carmella gloats to the crowd and even shoves a woman booing at her from the crowd. She then gets back into the ring and slowly picks up Sasha, mocking her. I guess you're the boss of suck, she yells. Sasha's eyes become blood red and her hair changes from royal blue to her fiery fake red hair. Sasha then pushes Carmella into the ropes and hits a clothesline from hell. Sasha Banks then pins Carmella for the victory. Post-match, someone's rushing the ring. It's the masked assailants, exclaims Excalibur. That's no mask, that's face paint, Pat McAfee screams. It's revealed to be Thunder Rosa, who runs down and beats up both women, hits a finisher on each woman, and then grabs a microphone. Thunder Rosa says then the following soliloquy monologue. I am tired of being disrespected. It has been 4 weeks and management can't find a place for me? Griff Garrison gets 2 matches before I do? An MMA expert, a world champion caliber? No, a world champion ready athlete, and that pisses me off. I demand a match from anyone in the back that has the balls to face me right now, and I'm not leaving until I get what I want. Rosa then leaves the ring and viciously grabs an official from the corner and pushes him into the ring. Out walks Jay Uso from the top of the ramp, limping down, holding his taped ribs as he enters the ring. Listen, I don't know who you are or why you're here, but you need to understand that I don't care. If you want to fight, I'll fight. I need to win. I will do whatever that takes. So I'm sorry, but... And then immediately Uso super kicks Thunder Rosa and instructs the official to ring the bell. Uso immediately covers Thunder Rosa, who kicks out at 1 to a thunderous pop. Rosa then gets up and kicks Uso in the gut and hits a stunner. Uso bounces off the ropes and super kicks Thunder Rosa in the face, who falls hard to the canvas. Uso now knows that won't finish Rosa, so he goes to the top rope. Jay goes for an Uso splash, but Rosa rolls out just in time. It's called high risk for a reason. Rosa then lunges at Uso with a forearm, but Uso pulls the referee in front and Rosa clocks the official, who's then knocked out cold. Rosa, completely stunned by this, is then hit by Uso with a Superman punch. Uso then goes outside and grabs a steel chair and throws it into the ring and begins to climb back into the ring. He then puts the chair around Rosa's neck and climbs to the top rope. "This could finish Thunder Rosa's career. What are you doing, Jay?" screams Excalibur. Out of nowhere, Griff Garrison pushes Uso off the top rope to the outside floor. Garrison then leaves through the crowd as Don Callis watches from the top of the ramp. Rosa then gets her head free from the chair and gets Uso back into the ring. She hits Uso with the chair in the ribs, then slides the chair out of the ring. The referee wakes up. 1, 2, kick out by Uso. The two get up and start doing slow punches at each other. Thunder Rosa then hits her famous Codo de los Muertos, a spinning back elbow from out of nowhere for the pinfall victory. We then go to our main event. Osprey and Okada versus Walter and Hook, who is accompanied by Gable Stevenson. Pat McAfee announces before the match starts that these are the 4 men in the championship tournament at next week's pay-per-view, and the seeding will be randomized the night of the show. Osprey and Hook begin the match, and Osprey is able to distract and confuse Hook with flips and tricks, and is able to get into a cradle pin for a close 2 count. Osprey and Okada keep Hook from tagging in Walter, cutting the ring in half and keeping Walter off the apron. Okada hits Hook with a spinning tombstone, followed by a standing moonsault from Osprey. 1, 2, Walter breaks up the pin. Osprey kicks at Walter, who catches his foot and hits Osprey with a thunderous chop that drops the Brit to the ground. Okada stays on the apron, petrified by the Austrian's strength. Walter then drags Hook's body to the corner and tags himself in. Walter starts punishing Osprey, bruising his chest with chops and slaps. He elbows Okada off the apron. Walter Rania is running wild. Walter then sets up in his corner for a shotgun dropkick and runs towards Osprey, who gets out of the way just in time as Walter's feet hit the turnbuckle. The Austrian clutches his right ankle, and Osprey capitalizes, stomping on it repeatedly and locking in a heel hook. Walter drags himself to the corner, and Osprey breaks the hold immediately. Walter tries to stand up and almost collapses in pain. Osprey kicks at Walter, who catches the foot with all the strength left in his body and pushes Osprey across the ring. Walter then dives at Hook and makes the hot tag. Okada blind tags in and patiently waits on the outside. Hook, not realizing this due to his in-ring inexperience, hits a German suplex on Osprey, who then quickly rolls out of the ring. While going for Osprey, Okada capitalizes, hitting Hook with a surprise Rainmaker. Okada keeps the hold of Hook's wrists and connects with a discus Rainmaker to secure the pinfall victory.
Yeah, that was solid.
Yeah, that was a good
Thank
show.
you.
It was a great go home show right before a pay-per-view.
Yeah, there was a little storyline action. There was winning.
The hallmark of a good pay-per-view show is that it needs to be able to stand on its own story-wise, but it has to get people to buy your pay-per-view somehow, some way. You've got to contribute to that, and you did both of those things very well, I think.
Wow, right? This is the one that I've been touting to Derek this is like the greatest this is real. This is like the greatest wrestling show, like single show.
Right. Also, I can confirm that not only have Sasha Banks and Carmella wrestled each other before, but they feuded last year over the women's.
What
title.
was a joke? Because I assumed that they had, but I was doing a first time ever.
Right. Does this mean it's time for Screw Vince McMahon Wrestling?
Screw Vince McMahon.
Week 4.
Screw Vince McMahon.
I think I might get.
So, week 4. Doing these week 4 shows, these go home shows for the pay-per-view. So right now, our go home show, we do things a little differently around these parts. We at Screw Vince McMahon Wrestling, we start off our go home show with an advertising promo. But it is one of those advertising promos that like the company does, so it's going to be somewhat well written. So we're going to have Penta El Cerro come in, and he's going to start trying to sell face masks because he's a masked wrestler. He's like, hey, stay safe against the SVM 19. Get your face mask. And then Paul Heyman is going to come in from the side and do that thing where he just kind of yells at someone and the mic barely picks it up. And you're not meant to hear it, but it's Paul Heyman yelling. He's just like, no one's going to buy face masks. What do you mean you're selling face masks? Who's going to go to the website? And they go back and forth for like maybe 15 seconds. And then Heyman looks at the camera and he goes, no. He goes, you know what's going to sell, folks? He goes, you know what gives me the energy I need? Bang energy. And it's all just a promotion for Bang. So the marketplace would appreciate that. So that's the first little segment there. The next segment it cuts to is another promo for a promotion that's built upon screwing Vince McMahon. We're very much being like a Vince McMahon promotion, but that is okay. You have to at least imitate before you can overcome. So it's another promo. AJ Styles comes out to the ring because I'll refresh the audience. AJ Styles last week ended up winning the match that was supposed to decide the number one contender, and he cannot face himself. So no one gets a title shot this week. So AJ Styles comes out. He is usually cheered. He's supposed to be a face at this point. He comes out now, and he is viciously booed for what he did last week. He comes out there. I am so shocked, guys. I had no idea this was going to happen. He comes out, and he gets booed. I can't die now. He gets booed mercilessly by the crowd, and comes out. He's like, "Hey, first off, I just want to say I'm sorry," and they boo even louder. He's like, "Guys, I just wanted to apologize that I interfered in that match last week. I really shouldn't have done it. I just couldn't stand to see any of those competitors win." He's like, so what I will do, he said, later on tonight, I'm going to come out again. And he does the thing where he gets up on the rope and he puts his hand on the rope and he like points to the Titantron. He's like, anyone in the back that wants to come out and face me for the title later tonight, you're on. And so we do have a title match, but we don't know who it's going to be against. So AJ Styles comes in, gives a free title match right before a pay-per-view, as AJ Styles does. So we will see later on tonight a title match. Yes, so after that, it is Britt Baker versus Ruby Soho. That match goes on. It's about a 10-minute match. It's pretty good, quick-paced. It goes back and forth. They do a spot. They do the count-out spot where someone like rolls right back into the ring and then rolls right back out, and so they do that. And in the end, looks like Britt Baker ends up winning that match. So Britt Baker wins over Ruby Soho. The next match we have up is we have Seth Rollins versus Darby Allin. And those guys go at it for about 15 minutes. Seth Rollins hits a curb stomp. Darby flies off the top rope, does something that's not his finisher. They go back and forth for like 15 minutes. This match ends with Seth Rollins hitting a coffin drop and getting 1, 2, 3.
he does Darby's finisher. And so Darby is really incensed by that. And as Seth is walking up the ramp, Darby is like laying in the ring, and he gets a mic, and he's just like, Seth. And so then Seth stops walking. He turns around, and Darby's like, I'm not done, you know. He's like, I want you to face me at the PPV. Seth Rollins says, yes, I accept your offer to face you at the PPV. And so Seth Rollins versus Darby Allin will now be taking place at the PPV. Next is, oh, that's right. Next is there's a little locker room scene where we have some of the competitors that want to run the singles division. So we have them all standing around the locker room, and I might have them do something like they might just be pointing at their lockers and being like, I run the locker room. And they just go back and forth. It's so childish. They just go back and forth with that for a while. And then who but who pops in? Paul Heyman pops into the segment and goes up to two random wrestlers. The two wrestlers are Drew McIntyre, is part of this segment, and Broken Matt Hardy. And he goes up to the both of them. He says, you know what? There's a match going on out there right now. You guys are getting in it. And Matt Hardy and Drew McIntyre look at each other and they're like, sorry, but with all due respect, why? And Paul Heyman is just like, because I'm Paul Heyman. And I said so. And I'm Paul Heyman. So go out there. You got a match. And they're like, I guess he is Paul Heyman. So they get their boots on. They go on out. And we are going to have Drew McIntyre and Broken Matt Hardy versus Finn Balor and Keith Lee. And so Finn Balor and Keith Lee. Honestly, I love those two guys, but this is pretty much a squash match for Drew and Matt Hardy. You would think it would be the other way around because they just got randomly paired. And it's funny because we have McIntyre and Hardy pretty much squash Keith Lee and Finn Balor. And then at the end of the match, at the end of the match, McIntyre and Hardy get the pin. And you see Paul Heyman at the top of the ramp in the corner of his eye. So maybe that hints who Paul Heyman is going to be tying his alliances with in coming weeks, in coming PPVs. So we'll see. In the finale of this go-home show, AJ Styles comes out. AJ Styles walks down to the ring, doesn't even have a mic in his hand. No mic. Walks in the ring, just faces the Titantron, and then someone gives him a mic. So now he does have a mic. And in it, he says, if anyone in the back thinks they have a shot at winning this title, just bring it. Immediately, if you smell what The Rock is cooking. And so then The Rock comes out to thunderous applause. The Rock raises his hands. He's really playing into the crowd. He is like really into it. An electrified stadium at the Mercedes-Benz Silverdome. Superdome. It is electric down there. And after about 30 seconds, The Rock just stops. And then he turns and he points to the ramp. And then Brock Lesnar comes out. And then we all realize it was a setup and that it's just going to be Brock Lesnar versus AJ Styles again. And so we have Brock Lesnar versus AJ Styles for the title. And so they go back and forth for like 20 minutes. It is a hard-fought match. But in the end, it is AJ Styles with Cardona and Moxley that retains on this episode. And then, predictably, Brock gets the mic, says, "Yo, AJ, I've been meaning to tell you, we should probably get a match for that pay-per-view." They can kind of treat it like that book report they've been both procrastinating. It's like, "Hey, AJ, I didn't really know if we kind of get a pay-per-view in 2 days. Do you still need a match?" AJ's like, I could use a match for the pay-per-view. I'm not really on it yet. Yeah. Brock's like, "All right, you want to face me at the pay-per-view?" AJ's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll face you at the pay-per-view." And so then it is on. So we have Brock Lesnar versus AJ Styles at the pay-per-view coming up next week. So that is how the show ends. They have a championship match, and then they agree to have a rematch at the pay-per-view. So it should be an interesting show. But that go-home show, oh man, that itself could have been a pay-per-view. Excuse me.
I love the concept of Brock and AJ being so entrenched in fighting each other that they're like, "Oh shit, there's a pay-per-view on Sunday."
Yes. And I do love the little Rock teaser, but I did agree the Rock would never fight, and Jared wanted him to be a part of it. And I was like, tell you what, we can have the Rock come out there and do a thing, but he just can't start a wrestling match.
It's a good pop. I mean, the crowd.
I was expecting him to go full Chris Jericho 2012 and just come out for the applause and then leave, just without acknowledging that he's leaving. Just all right, cool, yeah, all right, see ya, and then he's just gone and doesn't actually wrestle the match.
That would be beautiful.
Good show.
Thank you.
Good show. Very fun. Fun. Micah, do you have anything you'd like to add?
James sucks. So, suck your show.
That is, that's not fair. James is a very nice person and he books a good show.
Well, I disagree with both of those.
Well, that's.
I think that's easy for you to say, Micah.
When I book a good show, I'll let you know.
When you book a good show, you'll let me know? That sounds good. I'd be very down for that.
You already said this episode. Do I have to rewind? You already said this episode. I did a good job.
No. You told me. You may have stammered a bit, but you said, yeah, I'm using your words. You said, when I book a good show, I'll let you know. That's what you said to me, and I was repeating it back, clarifying, making sure that is what you indeed meant, Micah, but I don't. Is that what you meant?
All right. Bye, everybody. We'll see. Like, share, subscribe, and suck a fat one. I don't know.